Welcome, Star Wars gamers, to 2020. I hope you all had a great holiday. Today we are going to take a look at what Star Wars games are either coming or we can expect to hear some news about this year in 2020. While there are no movies to celebrate, we do have the Clone Wars coming back and of course Season 2 of The Mandalorian, which was fantastic. Let's kick off. Today, already in soft launch, is LEGO Star Wars Battles, a Clash Royale inspired PvP tower based shooter. Does it all sound familiar? Due to be released on iOS and Android sometime this year. I would imagine that could be in early summer. Maybe spring, but I reckon possibly summer, maybe around when the Clone Wars is coming, who knows. Featuring many heroes and units from almost everything Star Wars, no Mandalorian yet though. Collecting and upgrading your cards while building LEGO towers on the battlefield to attack or defend and capture territory as you push towards the enemy base to claim victory. Almost like Force Arena, but on a portrait rather than a landscape mode, and probably the closest thing we do have to Force Arena, which has now been gone for a couple of years, sadly. This genre, in my opinion, has become incredibly stale, with the recent Gears pop again offering nothing new apart from a different IP, different skins and obviously a different setting, but essentially the gameplay and mechanics are almost the same. It will be interesting to see if LEGO Star Wars Battles does offer something new features perhaps, or new ways to collect cards, rather than loot boxes and aggressive pay to win microtransactions. Although I do know there are microtransactions in the game because they're in there, you can see them. So, right now the game is in soft launch, as I mentioned, and the countries of where it is currently available include India, Philippines, Australia, New Zealand and Denmark. Recently, the last update, which is November 25th, but I think there's one just a little bit before that, which is a main update, which is all I'm concerned about, added the Wookiee planet of Kashyyyk, as well as many new character additions, including BB-8 and BB-9E, and Moroth being the big white bear thing from Rogue One. Expect to see some more news of LEGO Star Wars Battles later in the year, and of course that will be a game I will be covering as and when time is nearby. I don't intend to cover it just yet because the game's in soft launch. There isn't really much there to grasp my attention. There's no guild settings, there's a lot of features missing from the game currently. Let's move on to the next one. Next up we have the Zynga Star Wars shooter. After its announcement in 2018, there hasn't been any news regarding its title. All we do know is that it will be a Star Wars shooter on mobile and a AAA experience, whatever that means today. Current recruitment suggests that they are still looking for key roles surrounding design and direction, so either they have someone currently managing the game until the new faces arrive, or everyone is sitting down twiddling their thumbs. Who knows? I don't really expect it to be the latter, mind you. Zynga expect the game to be home to millions of players, so expect a true AAA experience and possibly a free-to-play Fortnite-inspired game set in the Star Wars universe. Let me know what your thoughts are below on this, because right now it could be anything. It could be like Rivals, it could be like Fortnite, it could be cross-platform. Who knows? Love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Next up, and finally perhaps in this, is going to be Star Wars Rise to Power. There isn't a day that goes past where I don't get a message saying, what's happened to this game? I can't download this game. Why can't I play this game? Star Wars Rise to Power. It's been, again, almost 2 years since Rise to Power was removed from closed testing and never heard from again. Last year, some new job postings were listed on the EA website looking for a new director and some other little busybodies to help make the game. So the game isn't closed, they're still developing the game, they're just taking a new approach. Having played the closed alpha, it was clear to see why. Based during the original trilogy, players would clan up and engage in epic, LOL, space battles while fighting over resources and conquering star systems. While the game had some nice touches And those touches would be the fact you could clan together, guild together to make massive fleets, and then coordinate between yourselves attacks and defences across a large scale map. The pay to win elements were shocking. Yes, the game was in closed alpha, so no actual money was changed hands, so EA didn't charge, but this was a mechanic they built into the game. But crystals were the currency. You bought them with real money, so you had to pretend you paid for them right now. Had the game been live, you would have bought them with real money. Basically meant that whoever had the deepest pockets would rise to power, as things like the class of ships or fighters made no impact in battles. It was just your fleet has bigger ships, therefore more power, therefore you win. And it was just a whitewash, and you could end up losing ships which could cost you potentially money, and you would never see them again. Therefore it was gambling, and it was the worst I've ever seen. An example would be with ships. So if you've watched the film Rogue One, for example, where you see a squadron of Y-wing bombers disable a Star Destroyer. That's been in Star Wars for years. Rebel fighters have always been really strong. But that makes no difference in this game. So you, for example, if your planet was blockaded by one Star Destroyer and you had some Y-wing bombers, you would lose the battle. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, doesn't make sense, but that's how this game was playing out. That could have changed in the future, but the game was shaping up to not far from being released. The graphics have been added, they updated a lot of the key assets in the game, so the game was getting really close to being a general test, and then they decided to pull the plug on it, I think due to feedback from players, and the fact the game wasn't fun. There was no actual space battles to see. It was just something you could mistake for an animated desktop background. The game was lacking in every aspect as a strategy game. If you think about Star Wars Empire at War, but without the actual war part, the graphics and the spaceships coming out of hyperspace, and that was not there at all. It was just a 2D image with little dots flying around in a loop, and that was it. It was kind of boring to watch. But the good news is the game still is in development, and recent new hires at EA, and they've now set up a new mobile studio in Austin, Texas, means that EA have gone back to the drawing board. But I don't expect to hear anything on this game until probably the end of 2020. It's going to be a long wait for this one, unless EA works some miracles or have a complete U-turn and say, let's make the game like X and then just push out the artwork. Have to wait and see on that one. But again, let me know what your comments are and thoughts about this game. Speaking of Empire at War, just over Christmas, a new Empire at War remake mod was released to great fanfare, changing almost every aspect of the game, introducing new characters, ships, planets and ways to play, and I believe removing ground battles. But let's talk about some rumours here. Petroglyph, the studio who made Empire at War way back in 2006, are currently working on a Command & Conquer Remastered Edition for EA, as most of the people who worked there also worked on the original Command & Conquer games. I know the team at Petroglyph pretty well, and I wouldn't put it past them to pitch a remastered Empire at War or a brand new Star Wars RTS game to EA. Fingers crossed something like that does come to life, but not on mobile, but obviously on PC. RTS games have seen a revival in 2019, with Total War Kingdoms selling millions of units, Anno 1800 proving extremely popular, together with the Ages of Empire remastered, and of course a brand new Age of Empires game in development too. But could we hear news of a new Star Wars RTS in 2020? Watch your space. Finally, that brings me on to the current batch of Star Wars games, as really I've covered everything that is going on in terms of Star Wars gaming that we currently know about. Jedi Fallen Order was received by players and critics, well received. I wasn't a fan when it was released personally. Perhaps I have higher standards than playing a platform game in a Star Wars skin. I felt many aspects of the game were pretty poorly executed. AI was shockingly bad, for example, because players, I feel, have been starved of a true Star Wars experience for such a long time. Fallen Order was raised as a mighty phoenix out of the ashes of EA and saying, look, we have a game, a single player experience with no pay to win nonsense in there. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why it had such great acclaim. Moving on to Star Wars Battlefront 2. oh dear, which will be 3 years old, surprisingly, this year. How time does fly. They released a new Celebration Edition over the holidays for around $25, giving players all the unlocks of star cars and heroes without the need to grind and use credits to unlock everything. Just to be very clear to everybody, the game is no longer pay to win. It hasn't been pay to win since it was released now, because they took all that stuff out. Basically, you just earn credits now, which is sort of hard to come by, to unlock your heroes and buy heroes and upgrade your star cards. And it's as simple as that, really. But the game, it has come on leaps and bounds. There's a lot of content in there now from Clone Wars and other things have added to the game. And you could argue the game is still quite content light, given it's 2 years old. There should really be a lot more in it compared to other games, like Call of Duty's already got a ton more weapons. We've had no new weapons in the game for 2 years. That gives you an idea of how bad things are in the game. They've just introduced some new game modes and some new maps. And in my opinion, the game modes are pretty boring for me. As a great big showstopper was Galactic Assault, and it seems to me they're holding back on Galactic Assault as a new map from The Rise of Skywalker's release is only available in co-op mode and instant access, and apparently there's going to be some new Capital Supremacy Yawnfest game mode with some new original trilogy coming to that later in the year. I'm not a fan of Capital Supremacy. There isn't enough players to make it exciting. It's like what I call a headless chicken mode. You just run around from point to point to point to point to point because there aren't enough players to defend or hold. So you spend a good part of an hour or 2 hours just running around like idiots. Yeah, that's fun. But you can use vehicles, and some people can snipe. It's, you know, if you just want to not play an objective so much, you can just chill out, I suppose, on that game mode. But it really isn't for me. There are bots in there to make it sort of feel like 64 players, but they're bots, and that really is it. But in terms of that as well, the game has some fun moments. The matchmaking system, though, is a joke. There isn't one, and unless you play with friends or a clan, you'll often be steamrolled. And the matchmaking system, there is a matchmaking button, but again, it doesn't really work. I have no idea what it's based on. Probably thin air, who knows. Then it brings us to the bugs. Some of the bugs have been in the game since launch. The AT-AT Walker and Hoth, the orbital strike, still doesn't work properly. Really, the one in the first game in 2015 was beautiful, but for some reason here they cannot get this to work correctly. I just don't understand what's going on with that. But enough ranting about that game. But again, it's cheap to buy. If you haven't got the game already, if you're looking for a cheap first-person game to play, that's some fun, and you can have some fun in on weekends, then I would pick it up for about $10, no more than that. Even $5 for the base game, but I wouldn't spend money on the Celebration Edition. I would just grind out the star cards. They're easy to come by now. Credits are easy to come by. Just stop leaving matches. If you might be losing, but ending the round, the only thing that really matters are the amount of credits you get rewarded. So the more, if you play the objective, you get more battle points, you get more credits at the end of the round. And there you go. If I've missed any Star Wars games, leave some comments below. I don't think I have, because really that is all we've got coming at the moment for Star Wars. It really is quite depressing way to finish off. But with The Mandalorian being so successful, we might see some spin-off games coming, who knows, over the course of the year. But I hope you guys have a good 2020. And there will be some more Star Wars content coming with LEGO Battles when I get a hands on with that, and some more Star Wars news as we go. But thanks so much for watching, and the Force will be with you always.